Neera Tanden, what should the Democrats be doing to attract disaffected Republicans who are fleeing the GOP? Are we catching them in the net?
You know, my view of this is that you're right, that the country is facing an existential threat right now, and we have to make alliances wherever. And so I think we should welcome them. I think we have to recognize that accountability is only going to come.
You're a Trump voter, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, see? We're friends.
Yeah.
We got to talk to each other.
I agree.
We got to
agree.
We got to share this country. We got to start talking and making inroads. We can't just go to our camps.
I 100% agree.
Right.
You know, I think we have to recognize that democracy is at stake and welcome them with open arms.
Okay. Let's see. Black Knight asks Colion, is there anything that could happen that would make you say, okay, we need stricter common sense gun laws?
It's interesting because it's amazing to me how everything always goes to we need stricter gun laws in response to everything with respect to firearms. I think there needs to be a more holistic look and approach to it because if we take into account the way things were before, we have more gun laws now than we did before, but yet supposedly we're still dealing with.
Because we did get rid of the assault weapons ban. There are states that have actually deregulated gun laws over the last 10, 15 years.
So you say 20 to 30 years ago we have less gun laws or more?
You know, I'd say in the 1990s we had an assault weapons ban, and that was actually ended, and that was important. And in the South, they've passed a bunch of things to undo restrictions on guns.
Like stand your ground.
Like stand your ground.
That's not it. You don't stand your ground?
Yeah, I'm for stand your ground. Why wouldn't I be? Yeah.
Well, for one reason, I mean, the statistics on black people standing their ground against white people versus the reverse does not come out well for black people.
Yeah. Now, so
yeah, absolutely.
I think.
So I should forfeit my right to own a firearm?
No. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that specific law, stand your ground.
And
where
also just,
if I'm scared, I get to shoot you, is the way I interpret stand your ground.
Right.
And that's really how it's.
And the police enforce it in that way.
And when it's a white person shooting a black person, that is forgiven a lot more than the reverse.
Absolutely.
So, if that is the case, right, and then that's predicated on race, right, in terms of disproportionate effect of stand your ground laws,
right,
then of course that's a criminal justice issue, right? Then yeah, something needs to be done about that. But the idea that if somebody is threatening my life, I shouldn't have to be forced to retreat to a wall before I decide to defend my life if they're threatening it, no?
Yeah, I mean, but that's just always been the law. I mean, people have loosened. Stand your ground has changed
So you're not inherently against the idea and the concept of stand your ground. You're just against the way it's been applied.
No, I think stand your ground is basically makes it so that it's easier to kill somebody, and I object to that.
What?
It's basically like, you know, we had a rule, which is your life has to be, the normal rule before stand your ground was that your life had to be threatened. And with stand your ground, it's like anything that you perceive as a threat. That's the problem.
That's the part.
That's the problem.
Like that's a slippery slope.
Again, then that's predicated on a subjective standard, right?
But
would that not be?
The standard is inherently subjective in a self-defense.
Well, because my understanding of stand your ground from an objective standard is I have to be, I'm not forced to have my back against the wall if my life is threatened to defend my life, right? So
I don't think that's a requirement of stand your ground.
I'm going on to the next question. I'm standing my ground here. Michael Pollan, do you see a future where the government sponsors care for mental health? What would it take to get there?
Well, we have a real mental health crisis in this country. One of the reasons people are interested in psychedelic medicine
That's very involved with the gun crisis. I mean, that's we often get into that debate. Is it the guns or is it?
Well, you have the suicide rate is up 20% in the last few years. Depression is up 18% since 2005. Addiction is rampant, and mental health care in this country has very few tools. It's really broken. If you compare mental health care to any other branch of medicine, oncology, cardiology, infectious disease, they've all accomplished important things. They've reduced suffering, they've prolonged lifespan. You can't say that in mental health.
That's not true. Come on. I mean, 100 years ago, the Kennedys were lobotomizing their daughter because that's how they
That
did.
was 100 years ago. I mean, it was a long time ago.
I
But
said 100 years ago. Or,
I think he means over the last couple
I mean,
of
over the last few decades, right? And
okay, but haven't they come up with things that I mean,
antidepressants help some
I remember
people.
even somebody like Mike Wallace talking about they didn't have antidepressants when he was.
There's
suffering
less
that for
stigma.
years.
There's less stigma to mental health
No.
issues today than there were a few
They
decades
didn't,
ago.
Definitely,
They
but the
didn't
point
realize
is
you
that-
could just pour something in the test tube and make it better.
Right. Well,
It's not that easy, but they
No.
didn't have that option at all
no.
50 years ago.
But the antidepressants we have, actually, many people don't like taking them. Their effectiveness fades over time. They're very hard to get off. So
and they cause suicide.
And they cause suicide, yes. Yet, if there's a suicide blamed on LSD, that's a huge story.
Right.
But it's kind of routine.
Can
in
I just
our
say
eyes.
that our problems are not a constant? I'm not a Luddite when I say this, but I think the technology has completely upended mental health in this country. And we all love Uber. We want to order a car. I'm going to go to Open Table and get a dinner reservation. But so many of our kids are now shut-ins, devoid of personal interaction, and instead creating identities that just don't match reality. That's driving a lot of this.
It's disconnection. It's really disconnection. That's at the root of depression, addiction, obsession, all
The
these
phone.
things.
It's the damn phones.
Well, this is the
People
gun.
live on the
It actually
Well,
is
that's another
in some
addiction,
respects.
right?
Yeah.
That's another form of
terrible addiction.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I don't think she agrees.
Hmm?
I don't think she agreed with that.
I mean, we see suicide rates have increased amongst older men, rural communities, people. I mean, it's not universal.
This is the gun
rate.
problem. A majority of gun deaths in the U.S. are suicide, and,
Yes.
and the research is much clearer on gun control and gun ownership rates and suicide than with homicide. It's the crime rate effects are unclear. The suicide rate effects are very clear. If there are fewer
Right.
guns out there, people attempt suicide as much,
And they
but they don't
survive.
succeed as often because
That's absolutely not true.
that's
No, it is
that's
absolutely
absolutely
true.
true.
Totally
You see the
right.
changes
It's
in
totally
gun
right.
ownership.
If, that were
in
the,
different
if there was a direct correlation between the number of guns that were available and suicides, we would be leading the world in suicides.
There are also cultural
We are.
factors. We have
Suicides
different
are
cultural
increasing.
makeups.
Suicides are increasing in the U.S.
You see fewer suicides among Black and Hispanic people than among white and Asian people, independent of gun ownership. So we have demographic advantages. We should have an even bigger advantage over other advanced countries in suicide rates than we do.
And also, we do have most guns, but they're in the hands of fewer people. In other words, the people who like guns have many guns. There was a guy last week they caught with 553 guns. You have that picture of this guy's arsenal? Oh my God, this is what they found in this guy's house. Now, come on.
He
Is
was a
that too
collector.
many guns?
That doesn't stress you out. That doesn't bother you
He
at
is not
all.
giving
Like
an
that
inch.
many
Well, that's-
guns.
see,
Really?
Okay, so here's the thing about
That's
that, right?
not too many guns.
That
was a
I mean,
lot
at some
of
point,
guns.
what's one more?
I think the distinction is this. Look, we have to understand something, right? So I get it, right? You're not a gun person, right?
No, I'm actually worried about a person like that basically killing a lot of, having the ability to easily kill lots of people
only has two
with
hands.
no regulation.
Yeah, that guy
I'm
did.
sorry, what does that mean he only has two hands? People
well,
are getting
what-
slaughtered by one person. Children are being slaughtered
You're
by one
attributing,
children.
you're attributing an
with multiple
inherited,
kids.
you're inherently attributing a negative character to firearms, outright, right?
Yes,
So-
because lots of
and
people
so-
die at firearms.
and so-
That's why I do that.
That's the same. The same could be said of cars, right? But you're not advocating banning cars or limiting people's access to vehicles.
You can't take, I mean, the number of people who are murdered by guns is much higher than the people murdered by cars.
Well, no.
The number of witnesses.
I don't know about that.
No, that's your question.
Murdered by
It's
cars.
semantics.
Murders, yeah, not deaths.
She said, yeah.
Intentionally running over people.
But
Well,
a
not
death-
intentionally.
death-
Yeah,
but
intentional murder is
it's
intentional.
still horrible, though, for someone to die in a car accident versus somebody really trying
Can
to...
I say, this is why we're never, no disrespect to either of you, we're never going to get anywhere on this issue. The best we can hope for is a better integration of data, because I'm sick and tired of reading in the newspaper the following day, well, there was this warning sign, and this agency knew this, and this knew this, and
Right.
the left hand and the right hand are just not coordinating. That we ought to be able to get done.
And I don't disagree with that at all. But also the last point I wanted to make with respect to you seeing the number of guns up there and you feeling some type of way is I look at guns differently than you do.
Yes.
And there was a point in time where I looked at it. There was a point in time where I looked at it probably the same way you did, right? I had about as an organic progression of firearm ownership as one can have. I was against guns. I didn't like them. But I went to the range one time and I shot a gun, and that changed for me. And so now I can see a myriad of reasons for why someone would own a firearm, whether it be recreation, sports, collecting, so forth and so on. So when I see those number of guns up there, my mind doesn't automatically go to, oh my God, that's horrible and that's bad.
I totally hear what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying to you is what you're trying to do is say that progressives, liberals, whatever, want to ban guns. No one's saying ban your gun. We're saying regulate them so people with mental illness have background checks, a variety of things about certain types of guns. No one is saying you can't have a gun. And I know the NRA always wants to say people are saying ban guns, but they're not. They're simply saying for my safety and the protection of children and other people, we should have regulations like background checks on every single gun.
Now, how would you enforce that?
Okay.
You know, as we've done in the
If
past.
we're going to suggest a solution, at least have something that's enforceable, right?
It is enforceable.
So how
we
would you
have
enforce
background
it? How
checks.
would you
Do them
enforce a
for
private
gun
background check?
shows. Do them for regular.
No,
we have
but-
had discussions of bills. The NRA fights
No,
them.
I actually-
The Toomey Mansion bill. Support that bill. Would you support that bill?
After you answer my question.
That's
How would you,
I would
how would
say.
you enforce?
When
a
did I lose
universal
control
background
of this whole show? Okay, more of this. Go on NRA TV and you can debate them for a whole
check? More
hour.
than one.
I'm happy.
Everybody-
Thank you, everybody.
I'm
We
happy.
gotta go. I'm hungry.